So this is our session framing, and with that, I will invite our expert panel, uh, who are coming from a diverse background, but they will be asked, things around how they are putting these pieces into practice and how we can question them or how we can think along with them uh, on what impacts the the local economy. So I will first invite to stage Javier Fernandez Lopez, who is the Technical Director, Ecoris.
Thank you very much, Shivan.
Yes, I have the clicker. I can.
Okay, I can. Yeah, I can tell you. So, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. Yeah, I'm supposed to say just a few words, about me, and then I start with the topic, about coastal communities. Yes, my name is Javier. I work for Ecoris. I'm here with two hats, basically. One similar to Celia and to Michaela. We are working in a big contract for DG Mare, for the European Commission on the sea basins strategies covering the Atlantic, the Black Sea, the Western Mediterranean, and the North Sea. But then a second hat, which is that we've very recently completed a piece of research, which we think is entirely relevant for today's panel, which is a study precisely on coastal communities. Because strangely enough, at EU level, we didn't have a concept, a definition of what a coastal community is. So now we do, apparently. So I kindly ask our panel coordinator to allow me for 3 slides, because as you know, it's all about the panel. But I think that it's important to set the scene that everything comes from the European Ocean Pact. Probably many of you are familiar about it, but this is last year the European Commission came with this umbrella policy document, which sets the path for the development of blue economy in the whole continent and beyond. And, so surprise, surprise, one of the priorities, priority number 3, you have it in front of you, is precisely supporting and empowering coastal and island communities. Yeah. This Ocean Pact has had already a first element of implementation by the launch a few weeks ago, only a few weeks ago, of a new EC communication on coastal communities, based on a study that we at Ecoris did. Again, this communication sets the path for everybody, including the startups, and creates the innovation ecosystem that should enable coastal communities to take things to the next level. Yeah. So, in a nutshell, really, because we don't have much of a time, but perhaps some of the key characteristics of coastal communities, some of them you might find them surprising. So it's like 160 million people live in the what could be designated as coastal area. Out of the 450 million of the EU, it's quite a bit. The production, I won't stop in that figure because it doesn't mean anything to anyone. But we produce a 38% of the EU total in terms of GDP, which is quite outstanding. They also act as a natural infrastructure supporting the economy and mitigating climate risks. We're at the forefront when the erosion, when the climate accidents happen. And then perhaps it's very, very important to say that it leads to coastal communities lead to a EU competitiveness. No, it means a diversified service economies, ports and logistics, maritime tourism, and this potential is not fully untapped yet. So there is plenty to be done there. And then perhaps it's also very important to know that coastal communities, as such, are outperforming inland areas, the interland, in what respects innovation performance. As you probably know, there is a regional competitiveness index published every year, and coastal regions exceed now the EU 27 average. And then finally, I dare to bring to your attention a working definition for coastal communities. So I'm going to read it because I don't know it by heart, but perhaps it can trigger some thoughts or discussion. No? So what does the EU I understand as a coastal community? And it could be like groupings of interconnected actors and agents, being them individuals, organizations, or institutions, based on specific coastal territories, coastal areas, Cartagena, and characterized by a number of locally grounded values or capitals related to the sea. So you can develop a joint common economic activity, but you might be facing the same natural risks, or you might have like a relational, cultural, or social minimum common denominator. So this is the definition as it is standing now in terms of what can we understand as a coastal community. Thank you.
So welcome to the panel, Javier. Next, we have Dr. Avinash Shegde, who is working in sustainable solutions for water remediation, aquaculture, oceans, and maritime industry. He comes from Norway. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me here. So briefly about me, I'm a veterinarian. I practiced as a small animal veterinarian in India for 19 years before moving to Norway to study masters in aquaculture. And during my journey as an aquaculturist, I experienced terrible things happening in the ocean and with the fish. So I decided to do something about them. And I started working on providing solutions for biosecurity for the fish, and eventually landed with the oceans because water is a common denominator. In today's world, whatever problems we're facing, be it human health, be it animal health, water is the common denominator. We are intoxicating the oceans, and that's why we are getting problems like cancer, like bacteria-resistant infections today. So I decided to do something about this, and now we are having many new launches, many new products, many new POCs in work order, and we are in a good position to say we have some solutions which could help prevent the marinas, the boats, the ships, even the aquaculture ocean net cages, which from biofouling, which was till today maybe thought very much impossible. So we have some very easy solutions which could help us against biofouling.
Thank you and welcome to the panel.
Thanks.
Next, we have Finn Wander R, a marine biologist, saltwater stories, and she'll introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, good distance. Probably the shortest person to use this mic today. So Finn van der Aar, Irish-Canadian with a Dutch name. My background is, doesn't matter that much. The definition of interdisciplinary. So I spent the last 15 plus years working in deep sea research, specializing in cold water corals, working also in sedimentology, in chemical oceanography. So quite literally the rocks, the water, then the fish. And as my kind of experience and interest progressed, I got into working as a marine mammal observer, which is a mouthful, so we'll say MMO, in marine construction. And it was that coming on land, I guess, that kind of introduced me to that final element that I honestly didn't consider that much before, which was the people. And from there, I started to work kind of sideways, literally just from spending 12 hours a day standing on a port, rain, hail, sunshine, mostly talking to
He will speak to us about.
So, hi everyone, I'm Matthias, a co-founder of Libra Recycle, a Lebanese community-based initiative focused on waste reduction and recycling, and promoting also more sustainable lifestyle in coastal communities. My work sits at the intersection of environmental and social impact. Yeah, at the same time, we try to create some employment opportunities for vulnerable groups, including women, youth, and refugees in Lebanon. So in practice, this means three things. We try to giving to the communities different tools, infrastructure, and knowledge to properly manage waste and engage in recycling. Also to ensuring that citizens are not just beneficiaries of environmental projects, but co-creators of solutions through participation and community-driven platforms. And third, we try to linking environmental action with economy opportunities so that sustainability also become a source of income and resilience for local population. Thank you.
Thank you. A round of applause, please, for all our panelists. We can start. So the fifth panelist is going to be you. So we'll have some engaging talks, and we will have 4 provocations. I would like to understand who here works directly with the coastal or maritime communities. Can you raise your hands if you're working directly with coastal or maritime communities? Okay, 1. Nice. Who works with startups or innovation programs? 3, 4. Nice. 5. So who works in policy, regional development, or public institutions? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think 6. Javier. Okay. Now it becomes interesting. Has anyone of you seen a bad example of policy implementation, like without real empowerment or consultation? Just raise your hands. Maybe we will involve you into a discussion. A bad example. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. 5. Who has a good example with the local impact? Like if you have an experience or an example with you believe that skill transition. So I will have to remember. I think the same guys have bad and good examples both. Nice. Is this working? Yes. So I will give you this one. So we have divided this into 4 provocations. One is we are going to, the core principles, but provocations in terms of, people and community, environment and ecosystem, climate and its impact, and talent and skill need. And that's how we are going to ask some questions to our panelists and see where it flows from there. So from a people and community perspective, I would like to start with Javier. Javier, because you come from the policy and some background and a higher view of things, how regional maritime strategies translate into actual opportunities. So I would like to ask or help us, in describing some of the opportunities that you have seen as a concrete example that we can all connect to.
This one? Yeah, okay. So yeah, I'm coming as our coordinator was saying from the side of sea basin cooperation. which are really platforms for connecting people and connecting coastal communities. No? So if you and a bottom-up approach, meaning that those who need to develop the policies count with the elements of information coming from the practitioners and from the communities, that can automatically become a case of good practice. How can you do this? We can speak, can go back to for instance, one of the sea basin strategies that we're supporting, the WestMed initiative. No? There's a technical group on blue skills, which identifies the WestMed involves the 10 EU countries in the north of the Western Mediterranean and the south, the 5 countries from Africa. No? So this technical group is bringing together practitioners and coastal communities to discuss about the common needs on the skills that the young people and the younger generations need in the respective countries. As you can imagine, those countries are very, very different from their ecosystems, from their level of development. But surprise, surprise, there are really common grounds to cooperate and work together. Put together projects where you can find people in their 20s with a very, very strong interest in studying exactly the same subject, which relates to the sea. So if you ask me as one very concrete example of how we can empower these local communities and make it a success, that would be one.
I would like to carry it with Finn, like from a sustainable tourism perspective, or these same practices. How does it look from the bottom-up approach? If I can have you represent that.
Yeah, completely. So I guess the first thing I would think about, like you said, from the bottom-up approach is actually identifying with that community what they see as their needs. They are their experts in their own experience. What I've seen across tourism, but also quite a lot in the interaction between small-scale inshore fisheries and offshore renewables is kind of where you could have a project that's several years into its supposed consultation phase, and they're not actually talking to that local community or local communities until that point. And so then those first conversations are not going well because they already have their backs up, because they haven't been included, but also maybe the solutions that are being given to them are not fully relevant either.
So just to ask you again, like, do the communities see or they have the solutions that they are open for or expecting? Is the knowledge already there?
I think it's a mix. It's more about. Sorry, is there like a echo of one of those? Anyway. Sorry, could you repeat?
Yeah, I was asking, like, when we say about the local communities, the knowledge is already there. They know what their needs are, or sometimes it's something that just comes up from a foreign innovation. Like, my simple question is, innovation drivers are internal to the community, that they know what innovation they need, or do from where Javier said, the policy comes from a top down? Like, are we meeting in the middle, or are we somewhere in the bottom or somewhere from the top? Who is driving innovation?
Yeah, I get you now. No, I definitely think it's a case of meeting in the middle, because it's also, like, I can think of different examples from previous projects where that's kind of exactly how it's worked. But it's also the difference, I think, region to region as well, because is what's being prescribed, say, from a really top-down level, if it's something that's being brought in nationwide or even on an EU level, there's going to be so much nuance from one community to the other.
Okay. I think Matthias would have some perspective around that as well, because he works with circular economy practice, which have become practical economic opportunities at local level with your initiative.
Yeah, so
can you hear Matthias?
can you hear me? So yes, sorry. Yeah, so with Libra Recycle is a community-based initiative. So we try to empower citizens, and there is different motivation to motivate people. So there is an environmental urgency. but also the social change, and also the visible local impact for the people, also the landscape. And there is different type of people wants to come to help also to try to create some impact. So there is local people, but also we are a Lebanese organization, so the diaspora is really important because there is 15 million people outside of the country. So also we work together with different experts, researchers from this area. For example, in Lebanon, the coastline is 225 kilometers, and there is like for the tourism is like 80-90% of GDP. So it's a really part
if you want, is a program on regional development which does not count or takes into account the needs or the views of the citizen and the coastal communities. That would be unacceptable. But if we do things in the right order, then we come up with regional development programs which set the priorities for investments and to help and sustain our coastal communities and their innovation patterns, then I guess that we should all try to accept that scenario.
Nice. Thank you for setting up. And I did not know actually before today that it was 7 years of policy that it changes.
7 years policy cycle, yeah.
Yeah, nice. So Finn, what happens when external innovation enters? Like a fishing or tourism communities, do they understand local culture and livelihoods? Do they take that into account first?
This one's actually going to be a really interesting one for me because I'm going to be that person. So I need to think about that because basically, I think touching again on that example I gave with the offshore renewables, you're looking at like how can you create something for these different coastal communities while also taking into account the kind of local cultural initiative. I think it's like what happens, that's pretty broad. So what happens when it's good or what happens when it's negative, I guess is a question.
What are your cultural immersions in the local community that you work with?
So some interesting ones were things like, if you were to give maybe a negative one would be what happens when you develop a tourism sector, but you don't set limits at the beginning. So for my example of my background, I started with marine construction. So the limits are extremely clear. There's regulation, there's guidelines, both from Europe, both from Ireland itself, in terms of what days of the week you can operate, what level of noise you can make, what the interactions are with the animals. But then when it comes to something like tourism, I found it was much more ephemeral. So then it's kind of a case of when I'm going to go in and talk to so my project, sorry, which I think I didn't explain very well at the introduction, is basically I'm working on creating a framework. Sorry, there's really strong background from one of the mics.
I'm not sure, but
Thank you. That's a headache waiting to happen. It is basically looking at this. So taking my 15 years of that interdisciplinary research, looking at how can we create a framework for mostly fishing communities to engage or cross over fully or partially into the sustainable marine wildlife space. And it's building on a previous example that worked well within Ireland, which was a framework on how small-scale fishermen could transition into the offshore renewable sector. But part of what worked really well about that one is they actually designed it with kind of fisheries organizations. So they talked to the fishermen themselves about like, what do you believe are your transferable skills into the offshore space? And then they built it with them. So I think for myself, but for anyone, kind of working on something like that, it's how can you build it with them from the outset so that what your result is positive, as opposed to kind of the negative example from earlier, which is where you come in 2 years late and maybe you've built something that was not appropriate. But also don't just exist in a vacuum. Like we had an interesting one in Ireland where we were doing an offshore renewables consultation nationwide, but we brought in some speakers from Belgium and the Netherlands, and Ireland's initial plan was to make any offshore renewable infrastructure a no-take zone. And the examples we had from them is that they had actually integrated tourism models and also still fisheries into it.
Nice. So just a pulse check again. How do you think people moving to coastal communities, is it good or bad for the local community? How many people think that yes, more people moving to coastal regions for whatever reasons, or getting talent in is a good idea? Or do you think it has negative impact because the cultural immersion of a coastal community is different than the cities? Like, How many people think that it's good that you would move to a coastal city if given a chance? But let's say in Spain, from Madrid to Cartagena, if people move, is it good for Cartagena or not?
Cartagena, probably you can explain better. But from Mallorca, we know we have a lot of people in Mallorca. There is too many people in the coastal area of Mallorca. We not people inside. It's not. It depends on the region. Depends on the economic structure of the region. The people living already. There's a lot of factors. It's not only. I understand and I appreciate this strategy, but there is a big problem that is not one coastal region.
But taking example of Mallorca, did it help Mallorca? No.
We don't need more people in the coastal area. We need people inside Mallorca. We need people in the mainland, because there is a problem of lack of population.
Okay, that's a good point, and we will touch it into our fourth provocation as well, where skill and talent imbalance will be considered. Next, take the provocation 4 first, but that is how we have planned. So we'll take climate and impact as the next piece. As for coastal communities, climate change is not a future scenario. It's already a planning condition. So we would like to see and hear from you, how does that impact right now and how are coastal communities dealing with that? Is climate change already a big piece? And because Finn, you are from marine background and you are a researcher and academician, I would start with you. Like, what do you think? How do community, models or conservation projects take climate and, climate change into account currently?
So many ways. Like, on ones that I've had to work on, one of the major obvious ones is just actually risk. So I've had times when deep sea research vessel ship time, which has been organized a year in advance due to extreme weather conditions, get grounded. So I think depending on obviously what kind of actor or project you're talking about, you're starting to need to build in a huge level of resilience that maybe was not, and kind of contingency that was not necessary before. So for example, operating one of our national research vessels costs about a minimum of 30,000 a day for a small vessel. If you are grounded for 2 weeks, maybe you need to do something alternative like book an additional replica of your project time later in the year, or you have to plan around storm season, you have to build the seasonality into your project. It's quite a sad thing looking at it in terms of, say, small-scale tourism initiatives, because obviously they are maybe a lot less resilient and can't absorb it financially in the same way that something like a government body can.
We were informed that Cartagena, like we have a heat wave in Europe as well, and we were informed that there are some local warnings as well. So, Javier, how is the weather your side? Sorry, Matthias, I would like to see on, any awareness campaigns that are run in local communities around that, like any local climate.
Yeah, so we created a system, like we transformed the system, because the problem is always the same stakeholders comes to talk about coastal communities. So we create an application to give a voice to different people, especially youth people, because I think it's the most impacted community in the next years. And also we give a direct access to different knowledge to reinforce competency on both recycling, upcycling, and also reporting the different problems, issues on the coastal communities. And we use also social media to try to show the importance of recycling, but also to identify and to attract new people about this type of issues. And we have also like a reward system. We have eco points. So when you did a good action for the planet, you can receive eco points, say some discount for example, to go to the supermarket or for different things. So this one works really well because
the right capacity among young generations, we won't have that. So this is critical for the future. But then again, I go back to the Mediterranean aspect of this conference. The demography in the north and the demography in the south is so different. So in the south, countries like Morocco or Algeria, where the younger people, the pyramid of demographies is the opposite as in the old Europe, as we say, or in Spain or in Portugal. There's a bunch of people, lots of young people, eager to develop their capacities in a competitive and innovative world, such as the blue economy, the sustainable blue economy, who are just waiting for the right curricula and programs to come to place and start digging into them and implementing them. So the Mediterranean aspect is critical for this, both at the north and in the south. And then in the north, perhaps one of the things that need to be done and that the European Commission has spotted as one of the biggest challenges is the so-called ocean literacy, which is that, to tell the really young people at school level already what the ocean implies. So it's not the place that from, somebody living in Madrid. It's the place that you go for a fortnight, for 15 days, and spend, your holiday there. That's not the sea. So the sustainable exploitation of the potential of the sea is really, and getting people to know, the younger people to know is really a key topic. No. So how do we create opportunities for young people in coastal regions? First of all, they need to know that there is a lot of opportunity in front of them, looking at them.
So with that, Finn, do we see the skills, is being a marine biologist, is blue economy having skills that people or young girls, young boys are attracted towards? Do they want to be a marine biologist?
I think they do. I think it's a very idealized job. You just have to tell them all about the fish guts. But I think it's funny, there's kind of two sides to it. So if I was, for example, talking to a young group of school kids or even secondary, even university students, I would say there's two separate elements. And the first is the extremely practical part. So it's how can you support them by giving funding or access to the things you need for a career at sea. And that is as simple as, are you a strong swimmer? You need to take sea survival to work in a lot of offshore. You actually need to take a BOSIT, which is, again, expensive sea survival training, VHF radio licenses. These are all things I had to do as part of my university, which would have cost several thousand over a couple of years. Some things are subsidized, some things are not. And then back to that kind of thing that we were teasing out there around language and also communication with social media. Myself included, but many of the people I've worked with, part of what made our marine career viable was also the communication element. So using things like Instagram or LinkedIn or talks, podcasts, things like that. So kind of equipping them as well with communication skills. So we're all speaking in English here. I think the majority of us are not native English speakers. So it would be as simple as, are you providing language courses as well as maybe presentation skills, things like that as well.
Okay. So I would like to start closing this round, but I want some audience participation here. Do you feel that there is a specific skill or talent that is needed into these coastal economies or blue economies that you see as a trend that is shaping? Or if you have any questions for our panelists, we can take a few.
I have a question. It's a comment more than a question. That we must take care that when we talk about blue economy and sustainability of the ocean, not to focus only on the coastal communities, because the ocean is only one, and it affects the people from Madrid and the middle of Europe and all the earth. So we must to be care that the discussion is not focused on the coastal community. We must be to explain from the very beginning that the ocean cares to everybody. It's like the same as, okay, I live in the coastal area, so I don't care about the forest because we are in the coastal area. So I think that's important to include in our discussion everybody, because as always said, it's one ocean, it's one earth, and we are all together in this. It's just a point of something to think about.
Yeah, that's a very good point of, interconnection between communities and ecosystems. That's a point that, we should take into consideration when we are talking about regional or even talent movements. That's a very good point. So
Can I
thank
can
you.
I just respond to that
Yes,
one as
please.
well? I think that exactly that's one of the interesting things that we face in terms of communication around ocean conservation. I worked on a project where we traveled all around Ireland visiting schools, basically introducing them to the concept of fisheries and aquaculture just so they actually knew what it was. And it was mostly kids around the age of 10 to 12. And it was so interesting then to go inland and, of course, discuss that feeling of disconnect from the ocean, and we'd be trying to use then examples of you think most of your oxygen comes from the forest. Did you know it comes from algae? And I like that point.
Yes, Avinash.
Can I add something? When it comes to development of skills, there's a very good Norwegian system. Firstly, they encourage a lot of school incursions for students of all ages, and they're absolutely free of charge. And for skills development, they have a very broad and easygoing education system where the students can choose these streams of both the formal and informal education of aquaculture related, technical, non-technical part of the labor force of aquaculture. And some courses which are not provided, they have to take externally, which are costly, as she mentioned. Students are provided study loans with 0% interest, and with such beautiful conditions, like if you pass all the subjects on a regular time, you don't have to pay back the loan. So the government heavily subsidizes this, and which is a huge motivation for many students. Firstly, they infuse thoughts of interest in students when they go frequently see the oceans, interact with marine mammals or fish. They're definitely interest arouses, and they want to learn more about aquaculture and maybe develop a career in aquaculture.
Any further questions? Otherwise, I think we have more time or no? We are done. Okay. Then in that case, I will give you 1 more minute each to give one closing statement from your side. It can be whatever you want to close with. Javier, starting with you. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, as Francisco was saying, coastal communities is one sea, so there's no borders in between them. So we need to work in an articulated way, and looking at the sea as a one entity where we need to live with and profit from, but in a jointly way all around the Mediterranean, north and south shores. Thank you.
Thank you. Embrace the new technologies, embrace the newer thoughts and challenges. We have new solutions for biofouling. We have new devices. We have new technologies coming up in Europe, and we really want to take it further in Spain and Italy, and where biofouling is at the worst, with especially the ocean net cages. So we welcome whoever is willing to go for a pilot trial. We are offering them today. Thanks.
I guess initially what I kind of wanted to implore anyone who's got a coastal community related project or business or maybe initiative going at the moment was to kind of think about the longevity of that project and your plans for it after. I've worked on quite a few different EU funded projects or adjacent to them where you kind of got the sense that the communities felt a little bit left high and dry once it was 1 or 2 years kind of beyond the lifespan of the project. And obviously there's a huge amount of nuance to that, but it would definitely be something I'd love for people to consider. But another one, I guess, that has really come up, listening today to the different conversations that we're having is also around that concept of communication. So again, be it business or funded project or whatever it is how are you communicating in a really tangible way so that you're both singing the praises of the wonderful work that you're doing, but also ensuring for the robustness of your own project that you are actually communicating with the stakeholders that you need. I've seen this done really well, and I've seen it done.
Fifteen minutes, not too much.
Hello, I am going to present thank you. It's complicated to come here.
Yeah, but was trying to find which one is more appropriate, a train or a bus. I came to Madrid and then took a bus.
Bus?
It took 6 hours. Something.
You need a price. You need a price to come here. It's very complicated. We know because Cartagena is a terminal city, and the airport, Corbera Airport, have a few connections, and Alicante, yes, but we need 1 hour to come. I am going to present you. Okay. Hello. Hello, everyone. We have the last panel, our final panel of the day, address the question every innovator eventually has to face: how do finance and scale in innovations? This section is moderated by the Torkelsen Marku, with Pranat Tetali, Angus Murphy, Hector González Menéndez, and Abraham Trujillo Quintela. Senleng, thank you to come here again, and the over is to you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you today. We are in the last panel. I would like to invite my colleagues in this panel to join the panel. So while the panel is joined, I would like a little bit to measure which is the level of energy now. 1, 2, which is at 1, 2, 3, Okay, good. 4, 5, no. Okay, 3 at this time after a long day, a very intensive discussions. That's not bad. I think a lot of things have been discussed today, and it has clearly demonstrated that blue economy innovation is attracting interest and attention. But startups and SMEs, they are still facing difficulties in finding investment and in this journey from pilot to market and to growth, to scaling. Finance is important, but very often today it has mentioned and it has been demonstrated that it is not enough. There is need for much more. There is need for investment readiness, technical validation, access to customers and partnerships, access to innovation ecosystems, and connections with the right opportunities. We have an interesting panel, a combination of expertises from startup experience to investors and investment perspective, but also experience from the ecosystem support and enablers. Before we start, I would like to ask every panelist to introduce themselves very shortly. Who you are, what are you involved in the blue economy ecosystems, what are you doing, and what is the particular angle that you would like to tackle today? We can start anywhere. We can start from here without any particular order.
Well, can you hear me okay? Just give me a thumbs down if I'm speaking too loudly or anything. Yes, so my name is Angus Murphy. I'm here from Aquamarine. Aquamarine is if you like, an impact investment bank focused on ocean sustainability. So we're cross-sector within the blue economy. Yeah, we support on capital raising, mergers and acquisitions, and other aspects of the financial universe. It's great to hear that finance is important. You mentioned those words. Often we're in the room with some really, as we are today, fascinating innovators, disruptors. And sometimes it's harder to get a few words in as the investment banker. But no, it's excellent. And yeah, so we'll be speaking from the perspective of, if you like, the investors. We're not investors ourselves, but we're working with investors, raising money. Yeah, that's a little bit about us.
Yes, of course, I got seated to the native speaker, so good for me. Obstacles and other things that I would like to share with you about funding streams. But my main goal today or in the panel is try to convince you that the funding is not only about the money, but also about aligning priorities of research and avoiding duplication. And it has been mentioned also in other panels that sometimes across Europe or in the same sea basin, many players are doing similar things. So all these aspects are very important when combining public and private funding for transnational cooperation.
Hi, I'm Pranav. I'm the founder of the company OmniWind. We are a hardware tech startup. So today, the perspective, it will be a startup perspective, but mainly as a European hardware tech startup with a focus on blue economy. That will be my perspective for today. And I think I will broadly tackle the financing strategy issue for how I will share a bit of my journey and what I think will be our future in terms of finance. Thanks.
Yes, my name is Hector González. I work in CTI, in the agency that funds companies in Spain, based in Madrid. And I am national point at coin of some co-fund partnerships in Spain. And today, I think I represent the Spanish point of view in the government about sustainable blue economy, because CTI, the agency that I work, is a partner of this co-fund partnership in blue economy. And I listened that, maybe money is not enough, but I think money is crucial. Without money, there is nothing. It's necessary in the life cycle of the companies a lot of money. It's the real life. It's true. Basically in the first years, and we have a lot of European instruments that will give this money if you invest in research and development. Okay, in this sector, in blue economy sector, nowadays we will have, for example, in CTI, grants of 70% of grants of budget in a call of blue economy that opens in September. Okay, later we talk about this. Thank you.
That's exactly where we'll start. So we will tackle this discussion in three angles, which are the financing pathways for blue economy startups, what type of support mechanisms could be more effective, and what type of innovation ecosystems and what they should be doing. So let's start with how blue economy startups and SMEs, how they can access the right type of financing. I will start with Angus. All startups complain that there is not enough money. They have difficulties to find money or to receive money. Is there a lack of access or lack of availability to capital, especially for moving from pre-seed and seed to growth stage? And what would you recommend to early stage startups to change in order to improve their access to VC money?
Thanks. So in short, as a quick response to the first part of the question, no, I don't believe there is a lack of capital. And so to sort of build on something that I think has been a bit of a theme today, and to take actually on board some of the points that have already been raised, trying not to cross over too much. We've looked at earlier sort of what constitutes financing in the blue economy, and particularly some numbers around investors that are active in the blue economy. And what I'd really like to stress is that, yes, there may be, I think in the European Commission report, as mentioned earlier, there's something like 160 investors have been identified as having pure 100% blue economy approach in their investments. This is talking VC, PE onwards size, so away from public bodies, or some sort of investment thesis on that side. Now, to give you an example, when we go to market with a, say, Series A stage company innovator in the blue economy, we might reach out to 300 plus investors. So that's already double the number that have been identified in the blue economy. Now, that will cover VC, PE, strategics, family offices, foundations, so on and so forth. The field is much bigger than I think people initially consider, and that's okay. It's not the job of a CEO of a startup or the founding team to identify all those investors necessarily. That's where someone like Aquamarine is there to help. But hopefully that gives an indication that that might be just for you mentioned hardware entity, that might just be for a really specific niche in a hardware or software, just to pick two verticals. So the numbers across all the applicable sectors, because it's so broad, are in the thousands of investors you can reach out to. So in a short way, that's the answer. I would suggest there isn't actually a lack of capital. And then, apologies, what was the second part of it? Oh, recommendation on. Yeah.
What is blocking them? What need to change? What do they need to change in order to improve their access to?
Thanks. If I had to pick one thing out amongst a range, and just for succinctness, I'll just focus in on one key point. Commercialization. So you mentioned moving from seed towards Series A, B. At Series A, you need to be showing some traction, and traction is a broad term. Really, developing a technology or a business model without sales at the very big start of the build of that technology, you're going to hold one hand behind your back from the very beginning. So when you hit Series A, investors increasingly need to see revenue, and at some stage, that's not always the case, but generally speaking, and quality of revenue. I know earlier, I'm going to contradict something that was said earlier, and happy to have the argument afterwards. It was mentioned that things like partnership agreements and LOIs, albeit useful and pilots are useful, hard revenue at Series A is going to distinguish, in many cases, the successes, which means having that thought process at the very beginning of your trajectory. I hope that answers the question.
Very good. But besides VC and private capital, there are European funding instruments which are available. I would like to ask Hector, how can these European funding instruments help de-risk blue economy innovation and prepare startups and SMEs for further investment? And which of these instruments is more relevant for early and growth stage startups, according to you, based on your experience?
Yes. Okay. The financial support of companies in the early stages is necessary to cross the innovation deep valley, and to have lower risks, and to have best presentation to future investors, and to have better conditions to the banks. For example, there are a lot of instruments in Europe in the early stages. You have the Innovation Accelerator, the EIC, you have the Copernicus, you have a lot of. But I want to focus in this area, in sustainable blue economy, that we have a very good program and very good instrument, that it's a Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership, it's BEP, that is a co-fund partnership, like this program. This program is co-fund. This event, the hub, and we have not only money, we have a lot of additional activities that helps the companies in the early stages and SMEs to grow. We have the possibility to SMEs to participate in infrastructures like ports, to validate and testing their technologies, and we have ecosystem that follow these companies, and to have networking with clients, with suppliers, with the value chains, with projects in consortia, not
at the early stage. So it's probably not to spend too much time only towards that. That's just one type of funding. There are multiple fundings, as you said, European funding grants, the national grants. There can be some startup loans as well. And then once you prepare through all this, you use this money to take a startup to a certain level. Your technology levels should reach a certain level. Some sales should happen. And then probably the VC funding comes into picture. Because if you raise too early, it can happen that you have to give out too much shares of your company and you lose control of your company actually. And that might not be a very good experience. It might turn out to be a bad experience. So I would say there was a situation, I will tell you one experience where we were talking to one angels and they made an unreasonable demand of shares. But luckily at the same time, we got a loan from a local bank. And today I'm very happy that I did not take that money. Because otherwise I would have lost a big chunk of my company and then it would have been problematic to deal with them. So I think what these grants give you is a level playing field, because it's not angels sometimes are not really angels. So you can use this money and then you can treat government as an investor and take it up to TRL 5, TRL 6, generate some proof that you can have revenue as well, and then go towards funding. The problem, we are now working with some consultants to get access to some investors. But sometimes it's really difficult to know who are the right type of investors. So whom to approach, because being in the Netherlands, it's a small country, so the number of deep tech and investors are very small. The group is very small. Basically, you talk to 10 people and that's it. So beyond Netherlands, it was very difficult for us to get investors. But now, because we are working with some companies which can help us, we are able to get access to large group of funding.
Thank you. I would like to ask Abraham, cooperation, partnerships are, you find them in any piece of paper of EU platforms.
That works?
That's what I want to know from you. Do these cooperation and partnership frameworks help startups, and how they can better help startups access these funding opportunities, and especially how they can help connect research and innovation funding with market development better?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm 100% convinced that EU money helps. It's actually my job, so I need to believe it. But I'm genuinely convinced that it makes a difference. And I think that the panel is a very interesting mix, because I think all games and all playing fields are valid. And I think the combination of the two is what makes us also stronger, in the sense that I'm going to talk about the case I know better, because there are many European funding programs that can be most directly or indirectly connected with the blue economy. But in particular for research and innovation and the participation of SMEs and startups in European consortia, which Hector said, collaboration is crucial for alignment of priorities, but also for a matter of competitiveness. We are stronger if we get together and if we face challenges. I don't know, Jose in the keynote speech in the morning, he made a perfect example of some initiative that is being developed in the Mediterranean and has almost exactly the same application in the Baltic Sea. So it's everything about connecting sea basins and having common challenges. Horizon Europe at the moment is the first time in EU schemes where you have these partnerships funding instrument, where you know from the beginning, I'm talking about 2022, 2023, that there is an annual call for proposals with a budget of 500 million for 6 years in a row with the same priorities that are, let's say, drained from strategic research and innovation agenda, where you can see what are the most pressing and common challenges across Mediterranean seas. And then you have intervention areas where you know that the money is going to be available. So that gives you a certain security to build a stable financing playground for people, also for people to get better at requesting the money and building proposals and building consortia from 1 year to the next year to the following one. You know that priorities are not going to change, and that creates a stable environment for these transnational projects to pop up, of course.
Yeah. Let's come back to Pranav. Beyond money. Yeah.
I have one point to add to consortium. But because in EU, generally, EU funding goes towards consortiums. They basically like to fund transnational consortiums, but sometimes I think they overdo it. Like there are some, we have one project where we have 3 partners and we are doing a project, but sometimes money is, they like large consortium, like 40 people, entities and all that. And the problem with that type is that your coordination effort is so much that the project goals are diluted. Absolutely. So I think that the policymakers should be okay with small, effective consortiums where the project goals are met. That is what I would like to comment.
Beyond money, what is missing to help you foster your journey from piloting to market in the maritime technology and clean technologies?
Yeah, I think the beyond money is, fortunately, we have been okay with finding some support like test beds and collaborations with universities and all that. But I think we have also got some, in the beginning, it was difficult to get funded pilot projects. I think funded pilot projects are a little bit missing. And then I think the lack of time, because it took us a lot of time to get to TRL5 or to get the initial tests done. So it was because it's the technology we have is not a tiny device; it's a slightly sizable device. So it was difficult to test. So I think if there are many locations or test locations which make it financially, but also based on permits, easy to make a quick test, reach MVP faster with less complication, that would be of a great help actually.
Angus, when startups and SMEs are trying to get their first institutional investment, where do you see that they are still missing, and what makes the difference between success and failure in attracting institutional investors and investments?
Thanks. Is that working? Great.
Especially in our region,
Yeah.
not general, more focused.
Absolutely. Well, in terms of the region, I might come back to this a bit later, but there's different sort of levels of funding. We talk about sort of European funding, and you look at the EIF, for instance, and the avenues for which the EIF funding comes out through different sort of instruments and vehicles. I'll come back to that in a little bit because I think that's an interesting topic. In terms of the first institutional round, well, actually, to come back to something that, Pranav, you said, which I think is a really good one to elaborate upon, investors. I completely agree. Finding the right type of investors is really important, and something you don't want to do is commit a considerable amount of time and resources into pursuing a list of 50, 100 investors who, well, especially in the blue economy, you will have seaweed-focused investors, you'll have aquaculture-focused investors. This is if you're moving into that Series A, sort of your first institutional level. And they might entertain ideas in the initial stages before coming to the realization that it's not a fit on mandate. So I completely agree that it is important to get to that information. It is out there to find. What I would say we see quite a lot of is, our best friends, ChatGPT and Claude, can do a lot of groundwork. But we see a lot of the same investors coming up on lists that management teams show us quite often. Again, it's something that we do, and we have of the C-suite members to finding that. It is something. But to move on from that, another aspect, the team is a really important thing. And at that first institutional round, the same team that built a fantastic technology or a fantastic solution to a problem may not be the same team, and that's not necessarily that it needs changing, but it might need to evolve, that takes things through to the market and that successfully penetrates the market.
Especially the team working on research and then commercialization, which are a bit different experiences.
And on this point, you may need a CFO who has that experience in raising money, or you might just need to bring in salespeople. So it's not that the team is wrong; it's that it might need to expand, it might need to evolve. And so that's something where we see that at that first institutional round, that can be a big differentiator.
Hector, based on your experience, public institutions, how they can help startups and SMEs better move faster from research and development to commercialization? Which type of instruments they can use? Yes. There are grants, but there are a lot of complaints also about grants going to startups, because sometimes grants, they make them lazy or deviate them from the focus, especially when they have a huge bureaucracy. Instead of working on the startup, they have to work on the paperwork. So, but there are also technical assistance, consortium, networks, access to international networks. What do you think could be more important that they do?
Perfect. First of all, we are talking about public money. And we need to optimize this money. We need to fund the best projects and the best companies. No, it's obvious. But we have in Spain, we have with this co-fund partnership, the Sustainable Blue Economy, we've had a success of 23% of companies that are eligible to fund in these calls, and in Horizon Europe, this success rate will be around, for a Spanish company, around 7-8%. This program, Sustainable Blue Economy, will be the entrance to fund in the early stages to the companies, startups or SMEs, to have a probability to have a good rate of success. And not only to fund 70%, for example, in the Spanish case of companies of the budget, you have the opportunity to have consortiums. There is another instruments like Eurostars, that the consortiums are less, that 2 or 3 partners, and that's all. But in these co-fund partnerships, the medium are consortium of 4 to 6 partners and in international cooperation, and I think it's good for the startups and the SMEs. It's true that it's hard, because these instruments, if you in the first project, it's hard to know how everything is going and this kind of things, but we try in CDTI to follow these companies from the beginning to fund. There is this co-fund partnership. There is capital risks in CDTI. There are capital risks too in the early stages. We have Neotech for the years 0 to 3. We have another instruments, but in this area, in Sustainable Blue Economy, we think that it's to put in contact the companies with infrastructures, with the value chain is very important in Blue Economy, to have non-profit organizations, suppliers, clients. It's basic to have to a good project and to grow the company.
Abraham, these European partnerships, so we're talking about public funding, and we know how bureaucratic they are, etc., but they are good, they are needed. European partnerships, they are doing quite a lot of things, involved in different parts of the journey, but how they can help better startups and SMEs have access to research and knowledge results, infrastructure, networks, cooperation opportunities, research capacities, and especially from small and medium companies, which they may not know that these partnerships exist and these opportunities exist.
Now? Yes. So a couple of reflections. First, I agree with you and what has been said about the complexity of mixing, let's say, the speed of execution that a startup needs together with what requires in terms of transparency, for instance, public money. But as you have always heard, both the Commission but also national governments, we always try to work towards simplification up to a limit, but there are, of course, different speeds. There are other things that connecting, for instance, as I said in my first intervention, academia and research groups together with SMEs or startups is super interesting because they sometimes get to speak the same language and they find that one has the solution for the other, while, of course, the bureaucracy, it's there. But yeah, so, I think, and again, my main message, going beyond the grants themselves, I think this collaboration and the partnerships across Europe, what they open is access to knowledge, to infrastructure, to things that are very difficult to access otherwise, because we have the mechanisms. For instance, I can put the example of infrastructures. We have a rolling call for projects where you can bring consortia to get access to an observation platform there is in the Balear Islands that is on top of the technological breakthrough at the moment in terms of marine observation. And you can have a small company of Denmark accessing that infrastructure, which is critical for Spanish government, for instance. And that's not something that could happen spontaneously. You need a funding scheme behind that of public institutions that allow that mechanisms of having a partner from one country accessing a specific infrastructure of another country. I put the example of the observation platform in Spain, but I could put an example of Spanish SMEs accessing French gliders at the South Mediterranean with amazing results just for that collaboration. So I think having that access to knowledge, to infrastructure, to validation environments, that makes it, that makes that the effort and the bureaucracy has the reward of building those bridges.
You have experience with different European partnerships, BlueMed, BlueBee, etc. What makes an innovation ecosystem effective in supporting startups, and especially in the Mediterranean region, how the actors in the ecosystems, they can collaborate more effectively in order to create more effective ecosystems?
That's a difficult one. Actually, our metrics say that we are not doing so bad at Mediterranean level. If you look, for instance, at sea basins, innovation projects, I'm talking always about transnational projects. When you compare the metrics, Mediterranean partners are quite active in getting together and start projects compared to numbers that you could think that would be much better in the Baltic Sea, for instance. The Black Sea, we're struggling a little bit more to connect actors and make them work together, but at Mediterranean level, I can say maybe 1/3% of the proposals we get for transnational collaboration come from Mediterranean, or at least address a specific challenge in the Mediterranean. So we're not doing so bad, but of course, connecting actors within a sea basin, it's crucial. This is again, it has come to in several keynotes. You can find very common challenges and possibilities of collaboration only by mixing Mediterranean partners. And actually, we have also in this partnership that Hector was mentioning, we have an initiative of these regional portfolios. Creating a network of people that are maybe not across the Baltic, but just in a closer region and can have similar needs or situations that you may benefit to. So.
Thank you. Yeah, Hector, what your institution or EU programs, how do you think they can connect better innovation policy, funding, and business opportunities in the region, and especially focusing on startups and SMEs in the blue economy?
Yes, okay. It's basic to know that CETI, for example, funds TRLs of 3 to 7, okay, more or less, and the agency of Abraham funds basic investigation from 1 to 4, more or less. It's a good example, for example, of this kind of consortia is the spin-off of the universities, okay, the startups of the universities or the Center of Technologies that participates in these blue economy sectors. But these programs help to SMEs and to startups to basically to go to export and to go very far away from their own countries. Okay, we have the metrics about to fund only in the individual projects in Spain about the success and the exports and the growth of sales and these kind of things, and always the companies that participate in these programs always have growing faster and growing export higher that their own only alone in the country. It's basic to have to participate in this, not only for funds. It's to have the skills and the abilities to grow the company and reinforce the future of the company.
Angus, when investors look into an area for investment, what are the most important qualities of the sector that they look for, and especially in the Mediterranean region? Are there particular hubs where startups and SMEs are more investable? And what others, which are less investment, should do to become more investable and more attractive for outside investors?
Yeah, thanks. So despite my accent, I'm actually a bit biased against the UK. I've been living around the Mediterranean and wider area for a while, so I've had the fortune to see a number of different parts of the Mediterranean. And we work with companies and investors from across the region. And I'm sort of incessantly amazed, and you've spoken a little bit about the ecosystems and transnational programs and so on and so forth, incessantly amazed at the infrastructure around Europe. So in terms of hubs, you know, whether it's renewable energy development, desalination in Spain, whether it's shipbuilding, numerous countries across the region, whether it's in particular in Italy, sort of subsea operations. There's real competitive advantage, and it's really outstanding to see, and I do see the cooperation. But then there's a little bit of a disconnect between that competitive advantage in the region and what you see on the investor side. So if you look at there's a complete difference between that innovation ecosystem in the blue economy in Europe, focused around the Mediterranean, and where the capital sits, moving beyond the public bodies into, well, combined with that, into the VC, PE sort of zone. So as companies are sort of maturing, where is all of that capital? I mean, it's in the UK, it's in the Netherlands, it's in France, it's in Norway. Why? Because of where the public money is. You think about the industries that are producing a huge amount of capital, you look at the size of the economies. How does that run through? It does run through the EIF, but there are restraints around and areas that they're looking at. You know, they're moving to allocate capital to defense increasingly, as you'll all know very well. In the UK, there's tax incentives around VC-focused money into the EIS through SCIS, which favors UK-focused companies. So there's this distinction between where is the innovation happening in the ecosystems and where is the capital coming from. In France, I mean, I've seen a ton of VCs who want to back, or the LPs behind the portfolios, they want to back French companies. So again, it's not the usual, as I mentioned before, around identifying investors. It's not the usual job of a management team or a CEO to spend all their time looking at who your investors should be. But when you're developing your companies and bringing amazing technologies to market, it's something to have in mind. Okay, you may be from a hub where the infrastructure is excellent, but can you access the right capital if you're solely based there? So do you need some operations somewhere else? Or do you need team members? Or do you need, again, a CFO? Or do you need a board? Do you need a chairman who can access the right capital? It's questions to be having, and it'll help down the line if you can have those early. I hope that answers the question. Sorry if I went on a bit there.
Let's ask startup. Yeah, exactly. I will come to you, exactly. So let's suppose that you are trying to select a strong innovation ecosystem to move in. Yeah. What would be your qualities to ask?
Yes, it's
that
we are actually,
innovation ecosystem in order to help you move faster, grow faster.
Yeah, we have been exploring some different outside Netherlands now innovation ecosystems. I think there are few things I will look at. First is I look at what is the innovation index of the country, because that it's not just the number, but when you talk to people, you can feel it. I might take some examples. Recently, I went to Norway, and it was very clear to me that they want to be the first, and they are okay with piloting. They are more pilot-friendly countries. I think the northern countries tend to be more pilot-friendly. The regulations should be easier. That's the second point. And there should be at least some sort of funding for these pilots. Yeah. So this is what I will look at. And if I go to another country and if I get feedback like, okay, we don't want to be the first, we want to see it somewhere else first and then adopt it, or if the regulations are very heavy, then I would, at least at this stage, I would put that country below in my list. So that is what I will look at. And I also would like to add to the previous point, about the partnerships, because as a startup, we need to be very careful that we need to progress in the type of partners we make. So in the beginning, you can start with universities. They will push you more towards research, develop your product, but you need to drive yourself. At some point, you need to step back from them and go towards more mature partnership companies, because you would like to sell to them or put a demo at their location. And I think if this type of public-private partnerships can be facilitated better by EU or the national governments, we get a lot of help, to be honest, through trade missions or through conferences. But we have to stitch together. I had to stitch together my own consortium and then find funding. So something maybe more organized can be done around that.
Thank you. I would like to open for a few questions from the audience. Is there any? Yes.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank you very much, and it's not a question, it's comment to present another point of view. So actually you presented the EU fund as a good mechanism for a startup. I think there is a problem here for two things. One, the political instability at the EU level that tried to make EU make priority for other funding, mobilize the money from programs to defense, for example. This is actually cut money from startup. Second, the success rate of the EU project. So normally success rate around maybe 10%. With the AI evolution now, I think I would expect I don't know how you can reflect on that, but I see the EU solution itself is not a good solution for a startup. There is a lot of problems, and if we compare the EU with the US, for example, again, like our colleagues in the previous talk, he highlights that US is much better.
Thank you. A little bit of contribution from my side, and then I will pass it to you for a response. I think that's where these partnerships first enter into the play, because they can split the roles. Somebody who knows to write the proposals, institutions, research institutions, development agencies, etc., help with that, while implementation of that part of the startup. Then there is cascade funding. For example, a startup doesn't need to go for a full horizon project, but they can work with cascade funding. So there are different, of course, but that's important to know, according to your size and problem that you want to tackle, to which platform and which type of EU program to tackle, and not just start shooting in blind. And then whoever give a piece of response before, yeah.
I might not be the best person to comment on EU programs because we don't.
Well, I don't know. I can comment on that, but it's a bit what you say. And I think if you look at the EU funding schemes, it's crucial to place yourself in the right place of all programs, but specifically if you're taking, for instance, Horizon Europe, it's completely different if you're going to target Pillar 2 on societal challenges, on clusters, on European partnerships. If you are a startup that needs fast-track European Innovation Council, then you're moving to Pillar 3, where the loans enter in place, you work with European Investment Bank. So there is completely, we have to make a difference if it's a grant, if it's a loan, what's the interest rates, if it's 100% funding, what you get for personal costs, for equipment, for everything. So dimensioning the needs of your startup before applying to any funding scheme at European level is crucial. I agree with you with the success rate. This is something that we are concerned, and we all member states, we debate that in Brussels quite often. What is going to happen with the inclusion of AI? Is it going to decrease the success rate? As Hector said, we have presented here because we thought that was the most in-between solution instruments that have a higher success rate, because they come with national money topped up with EU money. So let's say the competition is less aggressive than in pure EU competitive calls, but I agree with you that the success rate might drop. European Defence Fund and the dual use is also a very difficult debate. How much of the funding available for research and innovation and startups can move towards a military use or the debate about the dual use. Of course, geopolitics make a lot of influence, but I wouldn't think or I wouldn't state that. I'm not sure how you express that the EU ecosystem is fragile on the directions they take. In general, multi-annual frameworks are generally consistent over 7-8 years. There are always reviews, of course, when geopolitical situations come up. Of course, there are reshapes of the EU programs, but I feel it must be the same in the private sector, that conditions can very quickly change over 2 years with the upcoming introduction of artificial intelligence or the war situations generally in the world, or the balance of power between two different regions in the world. I guess that's only natural that both private investors and public programs reconsider the playing grounds to adapt to that. But that's only an opinion.
Yeah, but I fully agree that in general, there is no more stability in the priorities in private sector than in EU policies. There is no VC which sets a 7-year outline focusing in one topic. They shift the next day, the market shifts, they shift to the market, to the sector which is more attractive. But the complementarity between, for example, research institutions and startups is very valid, where startups at the research stage, there's no private sector going to invest in the research to de-risk that part. So that's cooperating with the research institutions, public funding, wherever they can, that helps them do that step and then become investable for the private sector. Yeah, you can contribute while I approach to the next.
Thanks. Just to expand on that a little bit, because I think I completely agree with everything you said there, and to take that into the private sphere. Yes, things change quickly. To go back a few years, there was a lot of private capital available for renewable energy solutions. And then the world decided, let's go back to hydrocarbons. And those sources of funding changed a little bit. There's been a shift towards dual use and defense. So if you were building something in renewable energy, early stage technology a few years ago, you might suddenly have found the same investors who were offering capital then, come back in 2 years, they might not be there anymore. You know, BP's CVC has disappeared. Shell is not, you know, so those were renewable energy who've just pulled away and gone straight back into hydrocarbons. The point I'd like to make, and it goes into what you were saying there about proposals, which is not my area of expertise within EU programs, and time committed to get a 1 in 20 success rate, or maybe even tougher. Similar in the private world with investors. To save yourself going out to 50 plus investors, no success, not finding the capital, you don't need to go out. I suppose this is a difference where it comes to proposals, you can only apply to a proposal at the point in which it becomes available. If you are looking for your Series A funding, your seed funding, whatever it may be, there is no start time and there's no end time. Well, there's an end time when you get the money. You can be out there talking to investors whenever you want, and you can be building the likely investors. You can know what the market dynamics are. You can understand where capital is being allocated. And if that means you might need to pivot your business model, that's what you need. Or if it means you might need to pivot who you're speaking to, that's. And so just to elaborate on that point slightly, to make your life a little bit easier as someone who's focused on building something fantastic, there's no point at which you need to enter the market. Go out, get ongoing advice from investors. That will be useful for your own business, and it will save you going out for a cold open when you need the money.
I would like to...
Just to support, but you can...
Yes, I'd like to answer a bit of your question. I think
Bring some coffee over.
Yeah. I think the success rate you were talking about, it really depends on the type of instrument. Some instruments have higher success rates at the national level, some have lower. So it depends. Pre-selection is very important. So you should be truthful to what stage you are, and then select the instrument you're applying for smartly. And second thing I would say, these funding regimes provide a startup a stable financing system so that we can reach a certain level. And it avoids us shocks from some random, market forces, actually.
Just very fast, I think that it depends from the stage of the startup. If the startup is on research stage, they have to go to grants because the market will not give them money, and now Horizon gives the opportunity to be lump sum, so no actual costing, very simple way to approach. However, even if they have financing from a business angel or a VC, they need that money to find customers because they have technology solutions. Now, another mindset is collaboration with existing SMEs or big companies with healthy collaboration, because even if I am a startup and I have financing, I need customers, and that's not easy just with money.
Just the startup world is not easy, but that's a game that we love to play. So before closing, if it was easy, everybody did it. So that's why that entrepreneurs are a different species. In order to close, I would like from each of you one recommendation in one sentence for any of the categories of the ecosystem that you would like to give for Mediterranean ecosystem that they should change or should do to help startups in the blue economy move faster and grow faster. Let's start from you, Congressman.
Open call in September of sustainable blue economy, and we have grants of 70% of budget. That's all. And for Spanish companies.
Thank you.
My turn. Yeah, very difficult to summarize in one sentence, but I would say, and again, I think we shouldn't enter a debate between private funding and public funding. I think the combination of the two worlds is very interesting for startups, and I think there are occasions where earning a seal of excellence at European level opens also the door for having the eyes of venture capitals or investors across the world. That is one thing I wanted to say. Another thing is that having, as we discussed, that of course collaboration and having access to infrastructure, having access to validation scenarios, etc., is crucial. But I also want to put an idea that goes even beyond the blue economy sector, is the stability on a constant changing world. The public funding schemes we have in Europe, I can talk about the 100 billion euros that were compromised in 2020, almost out of the pandemic and without having the war situations we had in the next years and many other situations. That budget is going to be spent. It's going to be absorbed. So at least you have that security network for SMEs and for startups to get there, to have exploratory options that then can combine, of course, with private capital if they're able to. But having the combination of both is crucial.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. I'm going to be really facetious and say that I think the ecosystem is doing quite a lot. And I'm going to change this round. I'm going to say that I think there's something that startups can do for themselves within the ecosystem. And to bring it back to my first point, if I had to say one thing today, I'm always amazed by the Mediterranean startup ecosystem and the infrastructure there is. But coming back, commercialize as early as you can, and that it may take time to make sales. It may take time to have revenue, but if you start that thinking process as you're developing your technology, not developing the technology and then looking for customers, everything will improve.
I think that's the best money is always customer money. And with this, I would like to thank you for all your contribution, and thank you for listening to us.
Thank you. Thank you all the panelists as the moderator. Now we are running very late. Now we have the last speaker, Emilio Maria Dolores. He talked about the strategic of the region of Murcia in maritime sector. Thank you, Emilio, for your effort today.
One of these. Good afternoon. First of all, thank you very much to the organization of the event for permitting me to share this minute with you and try to inform you about the maritime strategy in the region of Murcia. Also, I give you congratulations for receiving here with this hottest day of the year, because it's really a challenge to stay here at this moment. Okay, I start with a little video, which is blue economy in the region of Murcia. Okay, what is the integrated marine policy? I suppose that every one of us knows that is a holistic concept that really tries to concentrate all the related sea policies in the European Union. This is the main action that moved the region of Murcia to work in an international context, in a governance that permit really the improve of the blue economy in our region. Based on the 4 typical pillars, four typical axes: marine ecosystem governance, protection of the marine environmental, generation of marine knowledge, and employment and wealth creation. Under this fourth topic, if we review the macroeconomic magnitude of the European Union, it's important to point out the national contribution of the European Union blue economy of every of the members. If we see in this figure, Germany is the most important contributor of the blue economy of the European Union, but the second is Spain, Italy is the third, France is the fourth, Netherlands is the fifth. If we add in these five economies, practically more than 50% of the blue economy is due to this contribution of these five countries. If we see the relative size of the blue economy, we can see that the picture moves quickly, and we see that Croatia, Chipre, Estonia, Malta are countries that really has a very powerful blue economy inside, due mainly to the coastal areas that belong to these countries. If we see this macroeconomic magnitude and we compare with the situation in the region of Murcia, we understand why we need a maritime strategy in our region. In 2022, thanks to the CTN, we start to work in trying to know which was the weight really of the blue economy in our region. The figure shows that 36.7% of the GDP belong to the blue economy. This is a very important quantity of this macro magnitude inside our region, that everyone around Spain and even in Europe think that Murcia is a green, autonomous community, not an important community in blue economy. We started in 22 working with different sectors of the economy: port community, shipping, building and repairing, defense, fishing, aquaculture, tourism, in order to build really a strategy. I don't see very well this picture, sorry, but we take into account that the strength really of our region are mainly the geographical location, taking into account our position in the Mediterranean area. Collaboration, inside of the region with the different sectors of the blue economy. One of present and future, quantifying and making visible the impact of this blue economy, governance, integrating marine surveillance, spatial planning, sustainability and climate change, and blue growth, innovation and entrepreneurship. These are the main 7 axes in which we are working now. If we see on the right of the picture, we can see the different measures are divided in these 7 axes. The plan has 8 main measures. These are, the first one is the creation of the marine region. As you know, Murcia region is a very little region inside of Spain, but our coastal region is very important in different municipalities. Then we are trying to create a maritime region in order to look for synergies in the different municipalities to better improve the blue economy. We have established a governing council. This governing council has the mission to establish a specialized body that really leads and promotes and coordinates and supervises the development of action related to the implementation of the maritime strategy and the development of the blue economy in our region. This concept was established 2 months ago and are now working in the coordination mainly of the different areas. We have named also an ambassador of the marine strategy. This person belongs to very powerful enterprises linked to the blue economy and has the mission of promoting the participation and dissemination of the marine and blue growth strategy of the region, in order that the stakeholder can integrate better communication and really the dissemination of the different plans of the key projects. We have established also a Blue Technical Office. This Blue Technical Office will be in the CTM. This Blue Technical Office has the mission to offer information and guidance to companies and individuals seeking practical and specialized advice for managing products, applying for aid and subsidies related to the blue economy. We have established also an analysis and a maintenance environmental marine plan. We have built a web page named Sion, oceanographic system of the region of Murcia. This gives us a lot of information in real time of the different parameters of the oceanographic area in which we are now implementing the blue economy. We have established also a working group dedicated to education and training for employment. This is one of the most important groups in our blue economy plans that has the mission to integrate specific content to the blue economy into vocational and university training curricula. We want to develop different areas. I give you some examples what we are doing now in the action plan dedicated to port infrastructure. The point 2, perhaps it could be the most important now in the region of Murcia, measure aimed to supplying fresh water to the population and productive sector through desalination. In the case of naval sector, we are trying to improve access to Navantia shipyards and also to maintain and to attract talent and retain this talent linked to the blue economy. In the action plan dedicated to research in marine science and technologies, we are now creating the Blue Economy Observatory of the region of Murcia. Our idea is to establish the same way of taking different data that the European Commission has now in the observatory in the European Union. In the action plan linked to the fisheries and aquaculture, we are trying to centralize the fish market and also to enhancing and recognizing the value of the fishing profession, because as you know, fishing profession has a very important problem today because people don't want to go to fish, and this is a problem around Europe. In the action plan dedicated to local authorities and coastal port, we are planning a different framework for developing an alternative energy plans and also training programs for public and private staff focused on development and tourism in coastal cities of the region of Murcia. We are in the blue tourism, enhancing the blue tourist plan of the region. For instance, Cartagena now every year has more than 2,100 visitors through tourists arriving by boat. Training and education, promoting synergies with the regional vocational education and training strategy. The action plan dedicated to business organization, we are trying to create a blue economy financing program with a specific line for digital transformation. In the action plans linked to defense sector, strengthen the CAETRA initiatives mainly. And that's all that we are now working. We expect to arrive to 2030 with most of these 158 measures developed. Thank you.
Thank you, Emilio, for your short presentation. Thank you. Now we have Noelia, Managing Director, CTN, to give a view at the Open Innovation Cooperation to address the challenges of the naval sector. And with Noelia, we will close this conference, and I will try to be very short with my speech.
No worries. I'll be short. Because I think I can do the closing remarks. So thank you for having me here, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to share with all of you, the experience of CTN. I'm Nora Ortega. I'm the director of CTN, that is the Marine Technology Center, a center that is located in Cartagena and was created more than 20 years ago with the mission to support companies, organizations, members of the academia in solving the main challenges of the maritime sector. So we have been working for 20 years, and at the very beginning, we were created as a meeting point, a place where I discuss about needs, about challenges and opportunities, and a place where to try to solve these challenges by developing technologies and by developing innovation. But eventually we discovered that it's not enough discussing and talking about problems, because you need real capacities, you need technical capacities that contribute to solve these challenges. So we decided to move to trying to get these capacities, and we worked very, very hard for more than 15 years until having a team of more than 80 persons. But finally, 2 years ago, we realized that, okay, we have a good team, we have some capacity, specific capacities, but even having this is not enough. Because what we discovered is that maybe we need to come back to the origin, to that meeting point in which people can talk and try to solve the challenges. So I'm going to share with you, to finish my presentation, and also to close this event, key 3 messages for you. The first message is that collaboration is the new competitive advantage, for sure. So the naval sector faces challenges that are really big and they cannot solve by any single organization. Even if you are having a great team, even if you are growing as you decide, you will not be able to address these challenges. The second message is that having technology is not enough. Innovation is not about developing technology. Innovation is about creating value and creating solutions that solve the real problems, the real challenges of organization. So CTN was built to bridge this gap among the companies, organization, industry that has this problem with the organization that have the opportunities to develop the technology. And the third message is clear, is that the future belongs to ecosystems. So a strong ecosystem creates sustainable growth, even for the organization as CTN that can be considered as a maritime cluster that also need to grow within this ecosystem. So for me, these ecosystems need to connect talent, knowledge, industrial investment, also the required investment to decided to start addressing the underwater pollution. one of the sources of pollution is underwater noise. And we have been working not only for region or for companies at national level, but also for the European Commission and even for the UNEP map, that is the United Nations Environmental Programme. And on the other hand, once we were working and specializing in that area, we thought, and I think it was a success, we decided to have a strong team in digital solution. Digital technologies contribute a lot in solving these problems. And once we had this digital solution, we started working more than 10 years ago in artificial intelligence technologies to develop smart sensors for solving some of the key issues in aquaculture, in offshore aquaculture. So you have a portfolio, we have a portfolio of solutions and technologies. You can visit citynaval.com, our webpage. But anyway, as this event is related to connection, so let's start connecting and sharing information. That's why I'm pretty sure that blue economy hubs matter. It's something that matters, and it makes sense to support them. Any other question?
Thank you.
No? So, José Enrique, it's your turn. Thank you.
Thank you, Noelia. I prepared some closing remarks for today. Before we have this room, I want to take one last minute to look back at the day we have just had. This morning, when I welcomed you, I pointed at the Bay of Cartagena through these windows, and I say that it was perfect setting for this conversation. I think that the day has proven that's right. I would like to give thanks to Flavio, to Francisco, to Thomas, to all the speakers. We have heard from Dilara on where the European blue economy policy is heading, and from Inigo Doria on what it takes to turn the wind into real energy. We have 4 very interesting panels that did not say stay political. They challenge ideas connected to dots across the borders and asked the hard question about the financing, communities, and implementation. We have something that no agenda can plan. The conversation in the corridors, over the coffee, over the lunch, even no one collaboration was worked today between 2 people and who had not spoken before. This conference has already paid for itself. I want to thank every and moderator, Miguel, Elisa, Sivan, Selsen, and the panelists who have their time and expertise today. I would like to thank to Deep Ecosystem team for the work behind the Immediate Hub and to help us to prepare this conference. I would like, the director is not here, but the director Matthew Kessler and the Technical University of Cartagena for hosting us. And the regional Murcia, like Maria Dolores, Emilio Maria Dolores, for reminding us the blue economy is not abstraction. It is at the sea, what we see from these windows and the people who depend on it. MedHub will continue this work after the day. The hubs in Spain and Italy are open for the startups, research teams, and those that do want to use it. And the startups are testing their solution here, and the conversation like one we have had this room, we are getting this whole thing moving. So please stay in touch with us, stay involved, and keep challenging with us. Now, I would like to end with a practical note. The guide tour to the Roman Theatre Museum began at the 18th. This short was from here, but to no one lost you. If you stay in the main entrance of the UPCT at the 6:30, we can go all together to the museums. After that, we will meet at the Mare Nostrum and 20 for the dinner. And I promise that all the conversation will be even that better than was today, because by now you know all of you. Cartagena has been honored to host you, and thank you for being here and enjoy this evening. Thank you all.
Gracias.
With camera or with YouTube में DP को सर्च करो.